Chapter 5 of The Genial Idiot by John Kendrick Bangs. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Nigel Boydell. Chapter 5. He suggests a comic opera. "There's a harvest for you," said the Idiot as he perused a recently published criticism of a comic opera. There have been 39 new comic operas produced this year and 4 of them were worth seeing. It is very evident that the Gilbert and Sullivan industry has not gone to the wall whatever slumps other enterprises have suffered from. "That is a goodly number," said the Poet. 39, eh? I knew there was a raft of them, but I had no idea there were as many as that." "Why don't you go in and do one, Mr. Poet?" suggested the Idiot. "They tell me it's as easy as rolling off a log. All you've got to do is forget all your ideas and remember all the old jokes you ever heard, slap 'em together around a lot of dances, write 2 dozen lyrics about some goo-goo bell, hire a composer, and there you are. Hanged if I haven't thought of writing one myself." "I fancy it isn't as easy as it looks," observed the Poet. "It requires just as much thought to be thoughtless as it does to be thoughtful." "Nonsense," said the Idiot. "I'd undertake the job cheerfully if some manager would make it worth my while. And, what's more, if I ever got into the swing of the business, I'll bet I could turn out a libretto a day for 3 days of the week for the next 2 months." "If I had your confidence I'd try it," laughed the Poet. "But alas, in making me, Nature did not design a confidence man." "Nonsense again," said the Idiot. "Any man who can get the editors to print sonnets to 'Diana's Eyebrow' and little lyrics of Madison Square, Longacre Square, Battery Place, and Boston Common the way you do has a right to consider himself an adept at bunco. I tell you what I'll do with you. I'll swap off my confidence for your lyrical facility and see what I can do. Why can't we collaborate and get up a libretto for next season? They tell me there's large money in it." "There certainly is if you catch on," said the Poet. "Vastly more than in any other kind of writing that I know. I don't know but what I would like to collaborate with you on something of the sort. What is your idea?" "Mine's a blank on the subject," sighed the Idiot. "That's the reason I think I can turn the trick. As I said before, you don't need ideas. Better go without 'em. Just sit down and write." "But you must have some kind of a story," persisted the Poet. "Not to begin with," said the Idiot. "Just write your choruses and songs, slap in your jokes, fasten 'em together, and the thing is done. First act, get your hero and heroine into trouble. Second act, get 'em out." "And for the third?" queried the Poet. "Don't have a third," said the Idiot. "A third is always superfluous. But if you must have it, make up some kind of vaudeville show and stick it in between the first and second." "Tush!" said the Bibliomaniac. "That would make a gay comic opera." "Of course it would, Mr. Bib," the Idiot agreed. "And that's what we want. If there's anything in this world that I hate more than any other it is a somber comic opera. I've been to a lot of 'em, and give you my word of honor that next to a funeral a comic opera that lacks gaiety is one of the most depressing functions known to modern science. Some of 'em are enough to make an undertaker weep with jealous rage. I went to one of 'em last week called 'The Skylark' with an old chum of mine who is a surgeon. You can imagine what sort of thing it was when I tell you that after the first act he suggested we leave the theater and come back here and have some fun cutting my leg off. He vowed that if he ever went to another opera by the same people he'd take ether beforehand." "I shouldn't think it would be necessary," sneered the Bibliomaniac. "If it was as bad as all that, why didn't it put you to sleep?" "It did," said the Idiot, "but the music kept waking us up again. There was no escape from it except that of actual physical flight." "Well, about this collaboration of ours," suggested the Poet. "What do you think we should do first?" "Write an opening chorus, of course," said the Idiot. "What did you suppose? A finale? Something like this: "If you want to know who we are, just ask the evening star, as he smiles on high in the deep blue sky with a tra-la-la-la-la.
We are maidens sweet with tripping feet and the goo-goo eyes of the skippity highs and the smile of the vergazoo, and you'll find our names 'mongst the wondrous dames of the woo-woo-woo-woo-woo.
Get that sung with spirit by 65 ladies with blonde wigs and gold slippers, otherwise dressed up in the uniform of a troop of Russian cavalry, and you've got your venture launched."
"Where can you find people like that?" asked the Bibliomaniac.
"New York's full of 'em," replied the Idiot.
"I don't mean the people to act that sort of thing, but where would you lay your scene?" asked the Bibliomaniac.
"Oh, any old place in the Pacific Ocean," said the Idiot. "Make your own geography. Everybody else does. There's a million islands out there of one kind or another, and as defenseless as a 2-week-old infant. If you want a real one, fish it out and fire ahead. If you don't, make one up for yourself and call it the Island of Piccolo or something of that sort. After you've got your chorus going, introduce your villain, who should be a man with a deep bass voice and a piratical past. He's the chap who rules the roost and is going to marry the heroine tomorrow. That will make a bully song."
I'm a pirate bold, with a heart so cold that it turns the biggest joys to solemn sorrow. I'm the heroine with her eyes so fine I'm going to marry tomorrow.
Chorus.
He's going to marry tomorrow the maid with the heart full of sorrow. For her we are sorry, for she weds tomorrow. She's going to marry tomorrow.
"Gee," added the Idiot enthusiastically, "can't you almost hear that already?"
"I'm sorry to say," said Mr. Brief, "that I can. You ought to call your heroine Drivelina."
"Splendid!" cried the Idiot. "Drivelina goes. Well, then, on comes Drivelina, and this beast of a pirate grabs her by the hand and makes love to her as if he thought wooing was a game of snap the whip. She sings a soprano solo of protest, and the pirate summons his hirelings to cast Drivelina into a dungeon cell, when boom! An American warship appears on the horizon. The crew, under the leadership of a man with a squeaky tenor voice named Lieutenant Somebody or other, comes ashore, puts Drivelina under the protection of the American flag, while his crew sing the following: "We are Jackies, 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 and we smoke the best tobaccies you can find from Zanzibar to Honolulu. And we fight for Uncle Sammy, yes, indeed we do, for damme, and you can bet your life that that's the thing to doodle-do. You can bet your life that that's the thing to doodle-doodle-do." "Hey, what?" demanded the Idiot.
"Well, what yourself?"
asked the Lawyer. "This is your job. What next?" "Well, the pirate gets lively, tries to assassinate the lieutenant, who kills half the natives with his sword, and is about to slay the pirate when he discovers that he is his long-lost father," said the Idiot. "The heroine then sings a pathetic love song about her baboon baby in a green light to the accompaniment of a lot of pink satin monkeys banging cocoanut shells together. This drowsy lullaby puts the lieutenant and his forces to sleep, and the curtain falls on their capture by the pirate and his followers, with the chorus singing: "Hooray for the pirate bold, with his pockets full of gold. He's going to marry tomorrow, tomorrow he'll marry. Yes, by the Lord Harry, he's going to marry tomorrow, and that's the thing to doodle-do." "There," said the Idiot after a pause. "How's that for a first act?"
"It's about as lucid as most of them," said the Poet. "But, after all, you have got a story there, and you said you didn't need one."
"I said you didn't need one to start with," corrected the Idiot, "and I've proved it. I didn't have that story in mind when I started. That's where the easiness of the thing comes in. Why, I didn't even have to think of a name for the heroine. The inspiration for that popped right out of Mr. Brief's mouth as smoothly as though the name Drivelina had been written on his heart for centuries. Then the title, The Isle of Piccolo, that's a dandy, and I give you my word of honor I'd never even thought of a title for the opera until that revealed itself like a flash from the blue. And as for the coon song, My Baboon Baby, There's a chance there for a Zanzibar act that will simply make Richard Wagner and Reginald de Coven writhe with jealousy. Can't you imagine the lilt of it?
My baboon baby, my baboon baby, I love you dearly, yes dearly. My baboon baby, my baboon baby, my baboon baby.
And all those pink satin monkeys bumping their coconut shells together in the green moonlight.
Well, after the first act, what? Asked the Bibliomaniac.
The usual intermission, said the Idiot. You don't have to write that. The audience generally knows what to do.
But your second act?
Asked the Poet. Oh, come off, said the Idiot, rising. We were to do this thing in collaboration. So far I've done the whole blooming business. I'll leave the second act to you. When you collaborate, Mr. Poet, you've got to do a little collabing on your own account. What did you think you were going to do? Collect the royalties? I'm told, said the Lawyer, that it is sometimes the hardest thing to do in a comic opera. Well, I'll be self-sacrificing, said the Idiot, and bear my full share of it.
It seems to me, said the Bibliomaniac, that opera produced in the right place might stand a chance of a run.
Thank you, said the Idiot. After all, Mr. Bib, you are a man of some penetration. How long a run?
One consecutive night, said the Bibliomaniac.
Ah, and where? Demanded the Idiot with a smile.
At Bloomingdale, answered the Bibliomaniac severely.
That's a very good idea, said the Idiot. When you go back there, Mr. Bib, I wish you'd suggest it to the superintendent. End of chapter 5. Of the Genial Idiot by John Kendrick Bangs. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Nigel Boydell. Chapter 6. He discusses fame. Mr. Poet, said the Idiot the other morning as his friend the rhymester took his place beside him at the breakfast table, tell me how long you've been writing poetry.
Oh, I don't know,
said the Poet modestly.
I don't know that I've ever written any.
I've turned out a lot of rhymes in my day and have managed to make a fair living with them, but poetry is a different thing. The divine afflatus does not come to every one, you know, and I doubt if anybody will be able to say whether my work has shown an occasional touch of inspiration or not until I have been dead 50 or 100 years. Tut! Exclaimed the Idiot. That's all nonsense. I'm able to say now whether or not your work shows the occasional touch of inspiration. It does. In fact, it shows more than that. It shows a semi-occasional touch of inspiration. How long have you been in the business?
18 years, sighed the Poet. I began when I was 12 with a limerick. As I remember the thing, it went like this. There was a young man of Cohasset, turned on the red hot water faucet. When asked, is it hot, he answered, well, that is a pretty mild way for to class it.
Good, said the Idiot. That wasn't a bad beginning for a boy of 12.
So my family thought, said the Poet. My mother sent it to the under the evening lamp department of our town paper, and 3 weeks later I was launched. I have had Cassiothus scribendi ever since, but alas! I got more fame in that brief hour of success than I have ever been able to win since. It is a mighty hard job, Mr. Idiot, making a name for yourself these days.
That's the point I was getting at, said the Idiot, and I wanted to have a talk with you on the subject. I've read a lot of your stuff in the past 8 or 10 years, and in my humble judgment it is better than any of that rhyme nonsense of Henry Wintergreen Boggs, whose name appears in the newspapers every day of the year, of Susan Aldershot Spinks, whose portrait is almost as common an occurrence in the papers as that of Lydia Squinkham, of Circumflex Jones, the eminent sweet singer of Arizona, or of Henry Hartley McFad, the Canadian Browning, of whom the world is constantly hearing so much. I have wondered if you were going about it the right way. What is your plan for winning fame?" "Oh, I keep plodding away, doing the best I can all the while," said the Poet. "If there's any good in my stuff, or any stuff in my goods, I'll get my reward some day." "50 or 100 years after you're dead, eh?" said the Idiot. "Yes," smiled the Poet. "Well, your board bills won't be high then, anyhow," said the Idiot. "That's one satisfaction, I presume. They tell me Homer hasn't eaten a thing for over 20 centuries. Seems to me, though, that if I were a poet I'd go in for a little fame while I was alive. It's all very nice to work the skin off your knuckles and to twist your grey matter inside out until it crocks and fades, so that your great-grandchildren can swell around the country sporting a name that has become a household word, but I'm blessed if I care for that sort of thing. I don't believe in storing up caramel for some 21st century baby that bears my name to cut his teeth on, when I have a sweet tooth of my own that is pining away for the lack of nourishment. And if I were you, I'd go in for the new method." "What if Browning and Tennyson and Longfellow and Poe did have to labor for years to win the laurel crown? That's no reason why you should do it. You might just as well reason that because your forefathers went from one city to another in a stage-coach, you should eschew railways." "I quite agree with you," replied the Poet, "but in literature there is no royal road to fame that I know of." "What?" cried the Idiot. "No royal road to fame in letters? Why, where have you been living all these years, Mr. Poet? This is the age of the get fame quick scheme. You can make a reputation in 5 minutes if you only know the ropes. I know of at least 2 department stores where you can go and buy all you want of it, and in all grades, from notoriety down to the straight goods." "Fame at a department store?" put in Mr. Whitechoker, incredulously. "Certainly," said the Idiot. "Ready-made laurels on demand. Why not? It's the easiest thing in the world. Fact is, between you and me, I am considering a plan now for the promoting of a corporation to be called the United States Fame Company Limited, the main purpose of which shall be to earn money for its stockholders by making its customers famous at so much per head. It won't make any difference whether the customer wishes to be famous as an actor, a novelist, or a poet, or any other old thing. We'll turn the trick for him and guarantee him more than a taste of immortality." "You may put me down for $4 worth of notoriety," said Mr. Brief with a laugh. "All right," said the Idiot dryly. "That's a lot in your profession who like the cheap sort. But I warn you in advance that if you go in for cheap notoriety you'll find it a pretty hard job getting anybody to sell you any 18-carat distinction later." "Well," said the Poet, "I don't know that I can promise to be one of your customers until I know something of the quality of the fame you have to sell. Tell me of somebody you've made a name for, and I'll take the matter into consideration if I like the style of laurel you have placed on his brow." "Lean over here and I'll whisper," said the Idiot. "I don't mind telling you, but I don't believe in giving away secrets of the trade to the rest of these gentlemen." The Poet did as he was bade, and the Idiot whispered a certain great name in his ear. "No!" cried the Poet, incredulously. "Yes, sir, fact," said the Idiot. "He was made famous in a night. The first thing we did was to get him to elongate his signature. He was writing as P.K. Dubbins, we'll call him for the sake of argument. Now a name like that couldn't be made great under any circumstances whatsoever. So we made him write it out in full. Philander Kenilworth Dubbins. Regular broadside. You see, P.K. Dubbins was a pop shot, but Philander Kenilworth Dubbins spreads out like a dum-dum bullet or hits you like a blast from a Gatling gun. Printed, it takes up a whole line of a newspaper column. Put at the top of an advertisement, it strikes the eye with the convincing force of a circus poster. You can't help seeing it, and it makes when spoken, a mouthful that is nothing short of impressive and sonorous."
"Still,"
suggested Mr. Brief with a wink at the Bibliomaniac,
"you have only multiplied your difficulties by 3. If it was hard for your friend Dubbins to make one name famous, I can't see that he improves matters by trying to make 3 names famous."
"On the modern business principle that to accomplish anything you must work on a large scale," said the Idiot, "Philander Kenilworth Dubbins was a better proposition than P.K. Dubbins. The difference between them in the mere matter of potentialities is the difference between a corner grocery and a department store, or a kite with a tail and one without. Well, having created the name, the next thing to do was to exploit it, and we advertised Dubbins for all there was in him. We got Mr. William Jones Brickbat, the eminent novelist, to say that he had read Dubbins' poems and had not yet died. We got Edward Pinkham, the author of The Man with the Watering Pot, to send us a typewritten letter saying that Dubbins was a coming man and that his latest book, Howls from Helicon, contained many inspired lines. But, best of all, we prevailed upon the manufacturers of a celluloid soap to print a testimonial from Dubbins himself saying that there was no other soap like it in the market. That brought his name prominently before every magazine reader in the country, because the celluloid soap people are amongst the biggest advertisers of the day. And everywhere that soap ad went, why, Dubbins' testimonial went also, as faithfully as Mary's little lamb. After that we paid a shirt-making concern downtown to put out a new collar called the Helicon, which they advertised widely with a picture of Dubbins' head sticking up out of the middle of it. And finally, as a crowning achievement, we leased Dubbins for a year to a 5-cent cigar company who have placarded the fences, barns and chicken coops from Maine to California with the name of Dubbins. Flora Dubbins, the best 5-cent smoke in the market.
"And thus you made the name of Dubbins famous in letters," sneered the Doctor.
"That was only the preliminary canter," replied the Idiot. "So far, Dubbins' greatness was confined to fences, barns, chicken coops, and the advertising columns of the magazines. The next thing was to get him written up in the newspapers. That sort of thing can't be bought, but you can acquire it by subtlety. Plan 1 was to make an after-dinner speaker of Dubbins. This was easy. There are 1,000,000 public dinners every year, but a limited number of good speakers. So with a little effort we got Dubbins on 5 toast cars, hired a humorist out in Wisconsin to write 5 breezy speeches for him. Dubbins committed them to memory, and they went off like hot cakes. Morning papers would come out with a Dubbins picture printed in between that of Bishop Potter and a member of the Cabinet who also spoke. Copies of Dubbins' speeches were handed to the reporters before the dinner began, so that it didn't make any difference whether Dubbins spoke them or not. The papers had 'em next morning just the same, and inside of 6 months you couldn't read an account of any public banquet without running up against the name of Philander Kenilworth Dubbins." "Well, I declare," ejaculated Mr. Whitechoker, "what a strange affair." "Then we got Dubbins' publishers to take a hand," said the Idiot. "They issued a monthly budget of gossip concerning their authors, which newspaper editors all over quoted in their interesting items of the day. From these paragraphs the public learned that Dubbins wrote between 4 a.m. and breakfast times, that Dubbins never penned a line without having a tame rabbit called Romola sitting alongside his ink pot, that Dubbins got his ideas for his wonderful poem, The Mystery of Life, from hearing a canary inadvertently whistle a bar of Hiawatha, that Dubbins was the best dressed author in the state of New York, affecting green plaid waistcoats, pink shirts and red neckties. Witty things that Dubbins' boys had said about Dubbins' work to Dubbins himself were also spread all over the land, until finally Philander Kenilworth Dubbins became a select series of household words in every town, city and hamlet in the United States. And there he is today, a great man bearing a great name made for him by his friends. Howls from Helicon is full of bad poems, but Dubbins is a son of Parnassus just the same. Now he proposed to do it for others. For $5 down, Mr. Poet, I'll make you conspicuous. For 10, I'll make you notorious. For 50, I'll make you famous. For 100, I'll give you immortality.
Good!
Cried the Poet.
Immortality for $100 is cheap. I'll take it.
You will? Said the Idiot joyfully. Put up your money.
All right, laughed the Poet. I'll pay COD.
Another 100 gone, moaned the Idiot, as the party broke up and its members went their several ways. I think it's abominable that this commercial spirit of the age should have affected even you poets. You ought to have gone into business, old man, and left the muses alone.
You've got too good a head for poetry.
End of chapter 6. Of the Genial Idiot by John Kendrick Bangs. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Nigel Boydell. Chapter 7. On the Decadence of April Fool's Day. I am sorry to observe, said the Idiot as he sat down at the breakfast table yesterday morning, that the good old customs of my youthful days are dying out by slow degrees, and the celebrations that once filled my childish soul with glee are no longer a part of the pleasures of the young. Actually, Mr. Whitechoker, I got through the whole day yesterday without sitting on a single pin or smashing my toes against a brickbat hid beneath a hat. What on earth can be coming over the boys of the land that they no longer avail themselves of the privileges of the fool-tide?
Fool-tide's good, said Mr. Brief. Where'd you get that?
Oh, I pried it out of my grey matter way back in the last century, said the Idiot. It grew out of a simple little prank I played one April 1st upon an uncle of mine. I bored a hole in the middle of a pine log and filled it with powder. We had it that night on the hearth, and a moment later there wasn't any hearth. In talking the matter over later with my father and mother and the old gentleman, in order to turn the discussion into more genial channels, I asked why, if the Yule log was appropriate for the Yuletide, the fool log wasn't appropriate for the fool-tide.
I hope you got the answer you deserved, said the Bibliomaniac.
I did, sighed the Idiot. I got all there was coming to me. Slippers, trunk strap, hairbrush, and plain hand, but it was worth it. All the glories of Vesuvius, Etna, Popocatépetl, and Pelée rolled into one could never thereafter induce in me anything approaching that joyous sensation that I derived from the spectacle of that fool log and that happy hearth soaring up through the chimney together, hand in hand, and taking with them such portions of the flues, andirons, and other articles of fireplace virtue as cared to join them in their upward flight.
You must have been an holy terror as a boy, said the Doctor. I should not have cared to live on your block.
Oh, I wasn't so bad, observed the Idiot. I never was vicious or malicious in what I did. If I poured vitriol into the coffee pot at breakfast, my father and mother knew that I didn't do it to give pain to anybody. If I hid under my maiden aunt's bed and barked like a bulldog after she had retired, dear old Tabitha knew that it was all done in a spirit of pleasantry. When I glued my grandfather's new teeth together with stratina, that splendid old man was perfectly aware that I had no grudge I was trying thus to repay. And certainly the French teacher at school, when he sat down on an iron bear trap I had set for him in his chair, never entertained the notion that there was the slightest animosity in my act.
By jingo, cried the Bibliomaniac, I'd have spanked you good and hard if I'd been your mother.
Don't you fret, she did it. That is, she did it up to the time I was 10 years old, and then she had such a shock she gave up corporeal punishment altogether, said the Idiot.
Had a shock, eh? Smiled the Lawyer.
Nearly killed you, I suppose, giving you what you deserved." "No," said the Idiot. "Spanked me with a hairbrush without having removed a couple of Excelsior torpedoes from my pistol pocket. On the second whack I appeared to explode. Poor woman! She didn't know I was loaded, and from that time on she was as afraid of me as most other women are of a gun." "I'd have turned you over to your father," said the Bibliomaniac indignantly. "She did," said the Idiot sadly. "I never used explosives again. In later years I took up the milder April Fool diversions, such as filling the mucilage pot with ink and the ink pot with mucilage, mixing the granulated sugar with white sand, putting powdered brick into the red pepper pot, inserting kerosene oil into the sweet oil bottle, and little things like that. I squandered a whole dollar one April Fool's Day sending telegrams to my uncles and aunts telling them to come and dine with us that night, and they all came too, although my father and mother were dining out that evening, and, oh dear, April Fool's Day is not what it used to be. The boys and girls of the present generation are little old men and women with no pranks left in them. Why, I don't believe that 9 out of 10 boys who are about to enter college this spring could rig up a successful tic-tac on a window to save their lives. And the joy of carrying a piece of twine across the sidewalk from a front door knob to a lamp post, hat high, and then sitting back in the seclusion of a convenient area and watching the plug hats of the people go down before it, that is a joy that seems to be wholly untasted of the present generation of infantile dignitaries that we call the youth of the land. What is the matter with them, do you suppose?" "I guess we're getting civilized," said Mr. Brief. "That seems to be the most likely explanation of this deplorable situation, as you appear to think of it. For my part, I'm glad if what you say is true. Of all rotten things in the world, the practical jokes of April Fool's Day bear away the palm. There was a time, 10 years ago, when I hardly dared eat anything on the 1st of April. I was afraid to find my coffee made of ink, my muffins stuffed with cotton, cod liver oil in my salad dressing, and mayonnaise in the cream puffs. Such tricks are the tricks of barbarians, and I shall rejoice when April 1st, as a day of special privilege for idiots and savages, has been removed from the calendar." "I'm afraid," said Mr. Whitechoker, "that I too must join the ranks of those who rejoiced if the old-time customs of the day are now honored more in the breach than in the observance. Ever since that unhappy Sunday morning some years ago, when somebody substituted a breakfast bill of fare for the card containing the notes for my sermon, I have mistrusted the humor of the April Fool joke. Instead of my text, as I glanced at what I suppose was my note card, my eyes fell upon the statement that fruit taken from the table would be charged for. Instead of my firstly, secondly, thirdly, and fourthly, my eyes were confronted by fish, eggs, hot butter, and to order. And finally, in place of the key line of my peroration, what should obtrude itself upon my vision but that coarse and vulgar legend, 'Corkage, $1.' I never found out who did it, and as a Christian man I hope I never shall, for I should much deprecate the spirit of animosity with which I should inevitably regard the person who has so offended." "I bet you preached a bully good sermon, all the samey," said the Idiot. "Well," smiled Mr. Whitechoker, "the congregation did seem to think that it held more fire than usual, but I can assure you, my young friend, it was more the fire of external wrath than that of inward spiritual grace." "Well," said the Bibliomaniac, "we ought to be thankful the old tricks are going out. As Mr. Brief suggests, we are beginning to be civilized." "I don't think it's civilization," said the Idiot. "I think the kids are just discouraged, that's all. They're clever, these youngsters, but when it comes to putting up games, they're not in it with their far more foxy fathers. What's the use of playing April Fool jokes on your daddy when your daddy is playing April Fool jokes on the public all the year round? That's the way they reason. No son of George W. Midas, the financier, is going to get any satisfaction out of handing his father a loaded cigar, when he knows that the old gentleman is handling that sort of thing every day in his business as a promoter of the United States Hot Air Company. What fun is there in giving your sister a caramel filled with Tabasco sauce when you can watch your father selling $11 worth of amalgamated licorice stock to the dear public for $47.50? The gumdrop filled with cotton wool loses its charm when you contrast it with the consolidated radium containing 1 part of radium and 99 parts of water. Who cares to hide a clay brick under a hat for somebody to kick when there are concerns in palatial offices all over town selling gold bricks to a public that doesn't seem to have any kick left in it? I tell you, it has discouraged the kids to see to what scientific heights the April Fool's industry has been developed, and as a result he has abandoned the field. He knows he can't compete. That's all right as an explanation of the youngsters whose parent is engaged in that sort of business, said the Doctor. But there are others. True, said the Idiot. The others stay out of it out of sheer pity. When they are tempted to sew up the legs of their daddy's trousers in order to fitly celebrate the day, or to fill his collar box with collars 5 sizes too small for him, they say, "No, let us refrain. The governor has had trouble enough with his International Yukon Anticipated Brass shares this year. He's had all the fooling he can stand. We will give the old gentleman a rest. Fact is, come to look at it, the decadence of April 1st as a day of foolery for the young is no mystery after all. The youngsters are not more civilized than we used to be, but they have had the intelligence to perceive the exact truth of the situation." "Which is?" asked Mr. Brief. "That the ancient art of practical joking has become a business. April Fool's Day has been incorporated by the leading financiers of the age, and is doing a profitable trade all over the world all the year round. Private enterprise is simply unable to compete." "I'm rather surprised, nevertheless," said Mr. Brief, "that you yourself have abandoned the field. You are just the sort of person who would keep on in that kind of thing despite the discouragements." "Oh, I haven't abandoned the field," said the Idiot. "I did play an April Fool joke last Friday." "What was that?" asked Mr. Whitechoker, interested. "I told Mrs. Pedagog that I would pay my bill to morrow," replied the Idiot, as he rose from the table and left the room. End of chapter 7.
Chapter 8 of the Genial Idiot. This is a LibriVox recording, or LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by April Gonzalez. The Genial Idiot by John Kendrick Bangs. Chapter 8. Spring and its Poetry. "Well, Mr. Idiot," said Mrs. Pedagog genially, as the Idiot entered the breakfast room, "what can I do for you this fine spring morning? Will I have tea or coffee?" "I think I'd like a cup of boiled iron with 2 lumps of quinine and a spoonful of condensed nerve milk in it," replied the Idiot, wearily. "Somehow or other, I have managed to mislay my spine this morning. A real mildness has taken the place of my backbone." "Those tired feelings, eh?" said Mr. Brief. "Yippee," replied the Idiot. "Regular thing with me. Every year along the middle of April I have to fasten a poker on my back with straps in order to stand up straight. And as for my knees, well, I never know where they are in the merry springtime. I'm quite sure that if I didn't wear brass caps on them my legs would bend backward. I wonder if this neighborhood is malarious." "Not in the slightest degree," observed the Doctor. "This is the healthiest neighborhood in town. The trouble with you is that you have a swampy mind, and it is the miasmic oozing of your intellect that reduces you to the condition of physical flabbiness of which you complain. You might swallow the United States Steel Trust, and it wouldn't help you a bit, and 10,000 bottles of nerve milk, or any other tonic known to science, would be powerless to reach the seat of your disorder. What you need to stiffen you up is a pair of those armored trousers the Crusaders used to wear in the days of chivalry, to bolster up your legs, and a straight jacket to keep your back up." "Thank you kindly," said the Idiot. "If you will give me a prescription, which I can have made up at your tailor's, I'll have it filled, unless you'll add to my ever increasing obligation to you by lending me your own straight jacket. I promise to keep it straight, and return it the moment you feel one of your fits coming on." The Doctor's response was merely a scornful gesture, and the Idiot went on. "Always seems a very queer thing to me that this season of the year should be so popular with everybody," he said. "To me it's the mushiest of times. Mushy bones, mush for breakfast, fried, stewed, and boiled. The roads are mushy. Let's thaw out and get mushier than ever. In the spring, the blast of winter, all are still in solemn hush. In spring, the young man's fancy lightly turns to thoughts of mush. In the spring—" "You ought to be ashamed of yourself to trifle so beautiful a poem," interrupted the Bibliomaniac indignantly. "Who's trifling with a beautiful poem?" demanded the Idiot. "You are Locksley Hall, and you know it," retorted the Bibliomaniac. "Locksley nothing," said the Idiot. "What I was reciting is not from Locksley Hall at all. It's a little thing of my own that I wrote 6 years ago called 'Spring Unsprung.' It may not contain much delicate sentiment, but it's got more solid information in it, of a valuable kind, than you'll find in 10 Locksley Hall or a dozen etiquette columns in the Ladies' Away from Home magazine. It has saved a lot of people from pneumonia and other disorders of early spring, I'm quite certain, and the only person I've ever heard criticize it unfavorably was a doctor I know who said it spoiled his business." "I shouldn't mind to hear it," said the Poet. "Can't you let us have it?" "Certainly," replied the Idiot. It goes on like this: "In the spring I'll take you driving, Maudie dear. But I beg of you be careful at this season of the year. It is true the birds are singing sweetly all the notes, but you'll later find them wearing cotton flannel round their throats. It is true the lark doth warble, spring is here, but bird like fire. All is warmth and all is genial, but I fear the lark's a liar. All is warm for 15 minutes, that is true, but wait a while, and you'll find that April's weather has not ever changed its style. And beware of April's weather, it is pleasant for a spell, but, like little Johnny's future, you can always sometimes tell. Often modest little violets, peeping out from out the beds, the balmy morn, by night time have bad colds within their heads, and the buttercup and daisy twinkling gaily on the lawn, sing by night a different story from their carolings at dawn, and the blossoms of the morning, hailing spring with joyous frenzy, when the twilight falls upon them often droop with fluency. So, dear Maudie, when we're driving, put your linen duster on, and your lovely Easter bonnet, if you wish to, you may don. But be careful to have with you sundry garments warm and thick, woolen gloves, a muff, and ear-tabs from the icebox get the pick. There's no telling what may happen ere we've driven 20 miles. April flirts with chill December, and is full of other wiles. Bring a parasol and Maudie. It is good for tete-a-tete. At the same time you would better also bring your hickory skates. There's no telling from the noontide, with the sun shining bright, just what kind of winter weather we'll be up against by night." "Referring to the advice," said Mr. Brief. "That's good. I don't think much of poetry." "There is a lot more of it," said the Idiot, "but it escapes me at the moment. 4 lines I do remember, however. Pin no faith to weather prophets, all their prophecies are fakes. Roulette wheels are plain and simple to the notions April takes. Keep your children in the nursery, never mind it if they pout. And, above all, don't let your furnace take an evening out." "Well," said the Poet, "if you're going to the poets for advice, I presume your rhymes are all right, but I don't think it is the mission of the poet to teach people common sense." "That's the trouble with the whole tribe of poets," said the Idiot. "They think they are the license to do and say all sorts of things that other people can't do and say. In a way I agree with you that a poem shouldn't necessarily be a treatise on etiquette or a sequence of health hints, but it should avoid misleading its readers. Take that fellow who wrote 'Sweet primrose time, when thou art here, I go by grassy ledges, of long lane sign and pasture made, and moss entangled hedges. That's very lovely, and, as far as it goes, it is all right. There's no harm in doing what the poet so delicately suggests. But I think there should have been other stanzas for the protection of the reader like this. But have a care, oh, readers fair, to take your mackintoshes, and on your feet be sure to wear a pair of staunch galoshes. Nor should you fail in seeking out the primrose, golden yellow, to have at hand somewhere about a competent umbrella. Thousands of people are inspired by lines like the original to go gallivanting all over the country in primrose time, to return at dewy eve with all the incipient symptoms of pneumonia. Then there's a case of Wordsworth. He was one of the loveliest of the nature poets, but he's eternally advising people to go out in the early spring and lie on the grass somewhere, listening to cuckoos doing the cooking, watching the daffodils at the daily deal, and hearing the crocus cuss. And some sentimental reader out in New Jersey thinks that if Wordsworth could do that sort of thing, and live to be 80 years old, there's no reason why he shouldn't do the same thing. What's the result? He lies in the grass for 2 hours and suffers from rheumatism for the next 10 years. Tut, said the poet, I'm surprised at you. You can't blame Wordsworth because some New Jersey man makes a jackass of himself. Anyway, all writers should be responsible for the effect of what they write on their readers, said the Idiot. When a poet of Wordsworth's eminence, directly or indirectly, advises people to go out and lie on the grass in early spring, he owes it to the public to caution them that in some localities it is not a good thing to do. A rhyme footnote. This habit, by the way, is good in climes south of the Mersey, but I would have it understood it's risky in New Jersey. Would fulfill all the requirements of the special individual to whom I have referred, and would have shown that the poet himself was ever mindful of the welfare of his readers. The poet was apparently unconvinced, so the Idiot continued. Mind you, old man, I think all this poetry is beautiful, he said, but you poets are too prone to confine your attention to the pleasant aspects of the season. Here, for instance, is a poet who asks, what are the dearest treasures of spring? And then goes on to name the cheapest, as an answer to his question. The primrose, the daffodil, the rosy haze that veils the forest bare, the sparkle of Maria dimple sea, a kissing match between the sunbeams and the raindrops, reluctant hopes, the twitter of swallows on the wing, and all that sort of thing. You'd think spring was an iridescent dream of ecstatic things, but of the tight feeling that comes over you, the spine of jelly, the wobbling knee, the chills and fever that come from sniffing, the scented breath of dewy April's eve, the doctor's bills and such things like I never mention. It isn't fair. It's all right to tell about other things, but don't forget the drawbacks. If I were writing that poem, I'd have at least 2 stanzas like this. And other dearest treasures of spring, a daily draught of withering, blithering squills, to cure my aching bones of darksome chills, and at the door my love physicians ring. The tender sneezes of the early day, the sudden drop of Mr. Mercury, the veering winds from south to north by east, and hunting flats to move to in the May. You see, that makes not only a more comprehensive picture, but does not mislead anybody into the belief that spring is all velvet, which it isn't by any means. Oh, bosh! cried the poet, very much nettled, as he rose from the table. I suppose if you had your way you'd have all poetry submitted first to a censor, the way they do with plays in London. No, I wouldn't have a censor. He'd only increase taxes unnecessarily, said the Idiot, folding up his napkin and also rising to leave. I just let the Board of Health pass on them. It isn't a question of morals so much as of sanitation. End of chapter 8. Recording by April Gonzalez in Cavite, Philippines.